hello, first of all, and good morning. It's lovely to see you all. And yeah, you all saw me from here up, but the reason why we moved the date to begin with was because I had the joy of breaking my ankle when on vacation. So thank you for being patient with the rescheduling and such. But the reason why we're recording is that there were several people who couldn't make the makeup date. So we want to at least let them have the opportunity to watch it afterwards. I don't know if they will or not, but at least they have that option. So that is why we have Leslie here helping us with the cameras. And Amy Cleveland is here. She's my partner in crime, not just today, but we've been working together for 20 years?
Long time. Long time.
A little bit. Do you want to just say it?
Sure. I'm Amy Cleveland, and I've been doing Myers-Briggs. I was certified. I actually got laid off when I worked for IBM, and that's when I got certified in Myers-Briggs. So I've been practicing this in my interactions every day for quite a while now. And I think it's really a powerful tool if you take the time and kind of understand it. I do one of many things. Working with Lauren is one of the things that I do, and I wear a couple other hats too. I do other facilitation, and I do some career counseling.
And she's a personal trainer.
And I'm a personal trainer. I don't include that because people are like, that's not related to anything, but my whole focus is helping people be the best they can be, and no matter what the facet is. So anyway, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, Amy and I have been doing partnering together. For those of you, I think there are a few of you who have been in the partnering sessions. We've been doing that since the early 2000s. We have a little bit of a history working together. You may notice over the course of the day, we have different type preferences. So it'll be interesting to kind of see from your observations how we do things differently based on our type. So hopefully, at this point, if I have done my job, you know something about the Myers-Briggs. You have some sense of what we're doing, why we're here. Some of this will be a review. So it is a self-assessment that helps us to enhance teamwork, communication, relationships, even decision-making. And part of why it helps us to do that is it gives us insight into ourselves. So some people may ask, like, why are we focusing on ourselves if we're talking about communication? And it's because it's like I'm seeing Dave there. Can I control Dave?
No.
I definitely can't control Dave. It's like, can I control Sandy, or Ryan? Sometimes we want to focus on changing how the other person is with me or with us, and it can really just be an exercise in frustration. All we can really change or adjust or modify is our own approach. So that's why we focus so much inwardly when we're talking about this particular tool. So we've got the lens up here, and we're going to use the analogy, the metaphor of a lens over the course of the day. And it's really about when we're looking at other people that we work with, live with, relationships with, we don't mean to, but we unknowingly expect them to act the same way we do. We expect them to communicate the same way we do, problem solve the same way we do, think even the same way we do. And we tend to judge them through that lens if they don't show up the way we expect them to. Can anybody relate to that at all? It tends to be an unconscious bias, so it's not like we're purposely going, wow, why aren't they acting like me? But it's an unconscious bias. And the trick of it is we're looking through it through a distorted lens or a partial lens, because we're only looking at it from the view that's most accessible to us, and that's our view. So part of what we're kind of working on today is looking at things from a different perspective. So we talked about minimizing the bias and looking at things from your own angle. Now, in the world of diversity and inclusion, this is called an unconscious bias. It's when we're looking to somebody else and we have a view that's biased about how they should show up. Okay, does that kind of connect a little bit? So Amy,
ma'am.
This is your cue, my darling.
Okay, all right. All right,
So walk through.
check out what I have here.
Yeah. So when she's in the middle of the room, folks on this side, tell me what you can see on the block. Yeah. And on the other side? Is it something different on the other side, Amy?
Yes.
S?
And F.
Gotcha. There's our, yeah. So who's right? Right. But it's very concrete. I mean, it's like there's no debate, right? One side's an F, one side's an S. So it just kind of speaks to the same principle of us looking at things from only the angle that we can see, right? So when people don't show up the way we think that they should, or don't do things the way that we think that they should, how do we react?
Frustrated?
Thank you, Amy. Yeah, so how do we tend to act? We go into a situation and somebody's like does something that completely throws us. We're like, what were they thinking? Like, what are some of the typical reactions that we have, if we're honest with ourselves?
Anger.
Yeah, we're mad. We're mad. Sometimes we're shocked. Have you guys ever experienced shock? I have one person that does the same thing in my life over and over and over, and every time I'm shocked. It's like the weirdest thing. Every time I'm like, what just happened there, you know? Yeah, we literally expect them to act a certain way, and when they don't, we have all kinds of reactions because we're convinced that our way is the best. When in reality, even though we expect people to act like we do, there are literally 7.9 billion people on the planet. Most of you probably have heard somewhere along the lines, even though there are so many people, everybody has a unique fingerprint, right? So we literally have 7.9 unique people, unique DNA patterns. So no two people are alike. And yet on some level, we expect people to act like us, right? It's just kind of crazy when you think about it like that. So each person brings their unique approach. And what we would like to do with the Myers-Briggs, what it can help us to do is to minimize that unconscious bias and be more open to shifting our approach, accepting not just accepting how people do things differently, but noticing that it's by design. So like it's on purpose that we're all so different. You know what I mean? Because it feels sometimes day to day just like an annoyance. Like, what is wrong with these people? Why are they not thinking like I do, right? My way's clearly the best. I don't understand why they're not on course with me. But in truth, it is by design that we are all so different. So ultimately, we want to move in the direction of seeing the differences in a positive light and even leveraging the differences. So when we can leverage the differences, when I can pull in the strengths and things that other people do well that I'm not as good at, and vice versa, we're ultimately stronger, more balanced, and more effective. So Amy and I, our goal, our hope is really so that you folks are open to the possibility of not just tolerating the differences among you with your teams, and the same stuff applies at home for sure, but also to see the value and want to leverage it. Like, how can I literally leverage how somebody else is different than I am? So when we look at type today, we're going to be looking at it all through the lens of communication, or for the most part. All right? So it's going to be a specific focus. Some of what we're here to accomplish together is to better understand your own type preference. That's a lot of it. Kind of get some insight into your own unconscious bias. Like, start to kind of notice where you're expecting other people to act like you would. And to enhance your communication, but specifically around, we're going to look at feedback, giving it, receiving it, and resolving conflict. So why these three things? They're three of the biggest things that can make the difference in terms of us working well together, being like a high-performing team, or hitting roadblocks or having power struggles or having a tug of war, if you can imagine there's a rope here. So being able to use these skills can make the difference. Ultimately, insights are great, right? We like insights. But the bottom line is we want to find some ways to take insights and move them into action. So that's why we're going to focus before we leave on action. And a little bit about what to expect today. We'll present some information, then we'll have you break out into groups to experience it. And then we'll come back and debrief it. And then we'll ask you to try and connect it even a step further in terms of practical application. So you're not going to be sitting in the same seat all day. It's going to be a lot of getting up, moving, coming back. It's kind of the pattern throughout the course of the day. It's like content, then go experience, then debrief. There'll be some in-person individual work, but most of it is going to be group. The reason why I put participant-centered up there is they're speaking like presentations where somebody is just getting up and talking to you, and then there's a workshop. This is a workshop. Most of the talking is from Amy and I is going to be mostly now at the front end because we're just kind of building a foundation for the rest of the day. But you really are the workshop. So it's really about your participation and your engagement that makes it valuable to the other people that you're with. It also makes it valuable to you because there's never a person that engages fully that at the end of the day doesn't feel like they got a lot out of it. So it definitely is not a, we're talking up here for the day. We wouldn't do that to you. So some things, I'm going to direct your attention to some things that we're going to be using over the course of the day. A lot of it's going to be this binder. And we made them big enough to where there's room to, if you wanted to later 3-hole punch that book. The orange book is the other thing that we're going to be using. This has a breakdown of type and the differences, and it also has each individual type preference. So you may want to even, there's tabs on the table, you may want to even find your type preference, which there's a table of contents on that first page, and just tab. You might also, if you know already, tab who is your supervisor. Tab their page too, because it's helpful to read how the differences, how the different types communicate and what they need. We're going to be doing a little bit of work in your reports as well. So if you don't have that with you physically, you can pull it up on your phone or your computer. And then name tents are super helpful. So on the left side of your binder is a white piece of paper that is actually a cardstock. So if you wouldn't mind just folding that in half and putting your name on it like Amy and I have ours up here.
Oh, that's a great question. Think about that question and think about Myers-Briggs. I mean,
Was that Ginger? Yeah. Ginger as a P, I don't really care which way, but a J might care. A J might think that there's a best way to do that.
I think there is.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
Who? It doesn't matter. All right, so I talked about how it's participant-centered. So that means that there are expectations of you as well for this to be effective for everybody. So obviously stay engaged, right? Wrong answers are good. We don't usually hear that. What that means is we'll be asking a lot of questions over the course of the day, and we're not looking for a right answer. The reason why we ask the questions is because people don't learn by somebody else talking. People learn by digesting things themselves, by processing things themselves. So either by doing, a lot of the S's in the room are probably doers, or by minimally thinking it through yourselves. So we're not necessarily looking for right answers, we're just looking for you to participate. All right, so don't be like, oh gosh, I don't want to answer because it might be wrong. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. Be honest. What this means is if you have thoughts that you are skeptical about, share them. So there's nothing wrong with being skeptical about this. There's cynicism, which is not healthy or not helpful, But skepticism is healthy and helpful. So if you have questions about, well, this doesn't make sense because, or I don't know if I buy into this, share it out loud because probably somebody else is thinking the same thing, right? You won't offend us in the slightest. Promise me, we've heard it all. Combined experience with the Myers-Briggs, it's like 48 years we figured out. So we've heard it all, nothing will throw us. And of course contribute, because everybody else in here also is depending on you and your contribution. Let's hear from everybody else in the room. And these are the 3 things that we're wanting to hear from you, not just us, but also, again, not everybody knows each other. So it's kind of fun because Ajax doesn't often do things where there's combined. We've got in here estimating, shop, office, finance. I'm sitting right in front of you, aren't I? No, okay. So, so getting to know each other is kind of part of the fun of today. So guys, start thinking. So what so far from your reading your report, from our coaching session, from talking to your coworkers, what has clicked for you so far? What have you learned about yourself or other people that's been helpful?
I think the Myers-Briggs is pretty accurate because it was essentially what I expected it to be. So,
Okay, and how did that help you?
probably took away some of my cynicism walking into it.
Okay, good, yeah, awesome.
Learning how to deal with different people's types and attitudes and performances, and how to accept that and realize that there's more than one way than just my way.
Yeah. If you get nothing out, you could leave now, and you would have. You can't, but you can leave now, and you could have gotten. I mean, like that's huge, right there, huge, awesome.
I'm just going to put a little comment in here. One thing about Myers-Briggs is we're actually supposed to be born with a preference, but as we work in the world of work and as we conform to what we're supposed to do in the world of work, we sometimes lose what that natural preference is, and that's why often you see, I can go T or I can go F, depending on the situation. But I think one of the hardest things that I have found when I do Myers-Briggs with an audience is having them really get to what their real preference is. And I think that as we go through the world of work, you find you change to find out, to be successful in whatever the world of work is that you have. And I think that's the most challenging part of the whole Myers-Briggs. Thank you.
Got it.
Type preference was ENFJ, and the thing that I found most interesting about it is that it describes me a lot of the way that I go about life, which I didn't even realize.
Yeah.
Because I sort of like take more of a global perspective on things and worry about people's feelings and keeping things in harmony.
Yeah, kind of solidifies or concretizes the things that you sort of notice, but it puts it into words. Excellent. Thank you.
I am an ENTP. One thing I've learned was actually, it was confirmation for me that I am different than everybody else. I am very different. It's almost like I don't fit in. But I did find there's a couple other people in the company that's like me.
There are.
Got Dave Reed Sr.
You randomly were placed next to one. You guys were random too. We didn't mean to put the two INTPs together either.
We're having academic.
Okay.
Savage.
Okay.
Mark Twain, Thomas Edison, Tom Hanks, Sacha Baron Cohen, and Jack Sparrow and Jim Howard.
Jack Sparrow. He's right. He's right on. So ENTPs are the idea people. Who are our get it done people? So ENTP has a great idea. Who would that ENTP want to give it to make it happen? Yeah. ESTJ or ISTJ. They're going to crank it out, baby. They're going to make it happen. Yep. So perfect example of the leverage. The leverage. Leveraging other people's strengths to balance this out. Yeah, I think we're about half and half, aren't we?
Oh, no.
No?
Oh, wait, on introverts? Yeah, there might be. There were actually, I think.
So if I didn't remember that detail and I'm looking to her, who's more likely to be X? Come through for me, Amy. Come through for me.
There were 12 E's and 15 I's in the group of 27 that started.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah.
usually there's just slightly more E's.
Yeah.
So in terms of our flow today, We're going to go into the foundation in just a moment, the foundation of the Myers-Briggs. Most of you have heard at least some of this already, so we won't spend a ton of time here. It's really just to kind of review, refresh. Then we will look at type as it relates to giving and receiving feedback. Then type and conflict resolution specifically. Then our commitment to action. So basically 1 or 2 things that you want to use. So let me share here in case I forget to share it somewhere else. Today is very content heavy. There's going to be a lot of content, a lot of information. And we're doing exercises to assimilate it. But I want to share with you not to feel like you have to retain all of it or get all of it. I'm going to encourage you to select a few things that you really feel like are going to be useful for you and focus there. Does that make sense? Otherwise, it's just too much to retain. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to ask each of you 2 questions. So I'm telling you now, so you got some time to think about it. At the end of the day, Amy and I are going to ask you, what is one thing that you're going to commit to action? And that's going to end up on your development plan. But for today, it's just going to be an item. And then what's one takeaway? And that just means like an insight that you gained from the day, or just something that you're like, oh, okay, I hadn't thought about it like that before. And that's how we're going to close the day out.
This isn't supposed to be used to hire and fire people. This isn't supposed to be used for a lot of things. This is to be used as an understanding of how we can better, how more productive we can be, and how we can work better as a team. All right, so front arrow you're saying here? Well, there we go. Okay. All right, so it's a self-assessment. We talked about that. And again, depending on where you are in your life, you might take it today, and then in 5 years you might take it, and guess what? It might be something a little different. I know a few of you said that you are absolutes in what you are, and other ones said you're kind of border. I am a border in 1 or 2 of the continuums is what I call them. So, but it's a self-assessment. And like I said, when I've done it before, especially for corporations, a lot of times people respond to it like they think they should. All right, and that's kind of like the challenge of the Myers-Briggs. You know, there's 16 different personality type combinations, but remember, like Ginger and Dave said, they're the same type, but I bet you that their personalities are much different anyway. This is just one aspect of it, of how they deal with the outside world. Carl Jung's work by Isabel Myers and Catherine Briggs, and actually that was a mother-daughter combination out of Gainesville, Florida, who established this Myers-Briggs type indicator. And it's, like I said, it's just one aspect of your personality. It's something to help better understand why you act and react the way you do. All right, I think that part of what you went through with Lauren was you kind of assessed what kinds of things you wanted to make better within your teams, and you did took a poll, and she kind of evaluated which things were most important, and one of them was giving and receiving feedback, and one of them was resolving conflict. And I think that as we go through the day, I hope you see how this can affect, may not change things, that it can help you reflect as to why you act and react the way you do. And then, and really, there's not one better type. There are different populations that have like different types. The different types are, you know, there's more E's maybe than I's, and there's studies been done on that, and that changes as we change, as the population changes. But no one's better than the other. We all have gifts to give, all right? And as you're going through life, as you're dealing with that next conflict, or giving feedback and receiving feedback, remember, you can only control yourself, and that's just one person's opinion. You can contribute in a positive way as much as the next person. Be more self-aware, which I think you all have shared. See the values and unique approaches, which I think is fascinating because, you know, just in the E and I spectrum itself, you know, I's speak before they think sometimes, E's think before they speak. And you can tell that if you're dealing with somebody, all right? Learn to leverage others' strengths, appreciate it. Appreciate the fact that we're not all the same. Helps us be better communicators, collaborators, decision makers, and team members. All right? And I'm hoping that, you know, that you just don't leave here today. And I know Lauren has spent a lot of time, one-on-ones, and a lot of time with you all reinforcing some of this, that you can carry it through, not just to your world of work here at Ajax, but at home. I know my husband and I were kind of different. And I'm not going to tell you my type, because I want you to start thinking about what little you're going to know of me for the next 4 hours. see if you can kind of guess what my type is, right? A lot of people have me pegged and other people, well, they don't really. See value in our team's unique approaches, all right? Again, just identifying how good we are. Now, this is what I think is cool. It is a self-assessment. It is not a test, all right? A lot of people say the Myers-Briggs test, Myers-Briggs test. No, no, no. It's a tool. It's a self-assessment. It's just, it's not a test period. I like the way you did that, Lauren. That was good. Natural tendencies and preferences, again, dig deep, deep down in. I've worked with individuals like career counseling, and they've always done, let's say they've always done accounting, but they're very much an extrovert. So sitting in an office looking at books kind of makes them a little crazy. And just the opposite, I've known I's to be salespeople. What does that do to them? It drains them totally because they're out interacting the whole day. When they get home, they just want to shut down. They can be very good at it. It's learned. It's okay that you can do that. Just know that if you're extra exhausted after a day of doing something that you're really not your preference, that you might get wiped out. And like Lauren said, it's the way we're born, but you know, we have so many other factors. I'm the middle of 5 children. My mom and dad were both teachers. You know, does that contribute to who I am today? Well, yes. I mean, I'm a facilitator, I'm an instructor, but it's just a piece, but it really does. I really do believe that it's something that we're kind of born with, and it's hard to kind of dig down sometimes deep into really what our preference is. It's not to predict behaviors like, oh, there she goes again. It's just because she's a ISTP or whatever she is, you know. So it's used to maximize the potential in developing individuals and teams. Conflict resolution, we're going to talk this afternoon about that. That's kind of one of my things. I hope that you get as excited about it as I do. Career planning, again, I do some career counseling and I use it in career planning. And then improve and enhance relationships, both in the world of work as well as at home. Don't label like, oh, here she comes again. Here comes that ENFP, you know, where I... It's not to say who's better, who's worse, and it's not used for hiring or promotion. It shouldn't even really be used in the area of anything as rating somebody. It's just what it is, all right? It's just to help us better understand who we are and what we're dealing with. Okay, pitfalls, traps and pitfalls. There's no better or worse. There are more of the population that might be one way than the other, but does that make them better? No. Okay? Especially if you have a smaller group, like Dave said, they have a lot to contribute. Look at all the things that they can create and pass off to those of you that want to do it. You know, I mean, it's really great to see the differences in people. Don't label somebody's potential. It's not an excuse. Well, there she goes, you know, she's a...
Well, the other way around, no, I have people say, well, I'm a such and such, so what do you expect?
Yeah.
It's like, no. It's not an excuse.
Exactly right, no free passes, that's right, that's right. Don't discuss it in a derogatory way.
Seem obvious, but it happens so naturally and you don't even know you're doing it, because I do it too.
Well, it goes back to what Lauren was saying about the lens.
It's exactly right, yeah.
And that unconscious bias, because we do. Or like, you know, not to take my thunder from this afternoon, but if you have somebody coming in that always have a conflict with, or you kind of have a chip on your shoulder about them, like, don't like them, all right? So here they come. Open up your mind, all right? Because you don't know. You don't know what they have to contribute. If you already have that bias, that you're not going to see them for who they are, all right? And don't use it to screen or select, okay? This is the pitfall.
Make sure everybody hears that one. It's really important. This tool is not designed to screen people or select people for a particular position or role. Really important. It is not what it's designed for. There are some things that are designed for that. This is not one of them. Not one of them.
Good.
Yeah.
So we want to maximize everybody's potential, and we all have a potential, okay? Maybe we're not all doing it. And again, it could be that you're in this position that maybe it really doesn't speak to your real type, but you have been successful at it, and that's okay. That's all right. We develop our non-preferences, especially to be successful in the world of work. So the 4 key areas, Which is this? How we are energized. Do you remember from anything that you've talked about before? Which of the scales is what we're energized from? What gives us energy? From the outside world or from the internally?
We didn't spend a lot of time on this.
Okay, E and I, okay? And we'll talk more about that. Extroverts get it from the outside world. Introverts get it from inside, from internal, all right? How we take in information. It's how do we take it in? Are we linear? Are we are we actual? Okay, do we take facts for what they are? Or are we creative? Do we look at it and we say, no, let's go, like Dave was saying, let me be creative and come up with all these great ideas. All right, that's the S and the N scale or continuum. And then we say, how do we make decisions? All right, do we look at the facts? Do we walk through it logically? Do we come up with a conclusion because this is the way it is? Or do we say, but yeah, it's okay. That may not be exactly what we want, but we don't want to hurt our feelings, all right? So that's the T and the F, all right? How we make decisions. And the last one is how we organize. And how do we organize? Do we keep everything in order and piled up nicely and then do one project and then let that complete before we go to the next? Or we say, oh, I'm going to start this one now, but that can hold for a second because now this is more important and I'll get back to it. Or maybe I'll never get back to it, okay? That good old P, JP. All right, does that make sense what I'm saying there? All right, so just break it down individually, and that's what we're going to do when we do these little exercises and activities. You're going to find you're going to be with people of your same, on the same side of the scale or the continuum, and we're going to see how differences, the E's and the I's, the S and the N's, the T and the F, and the J and the P's are. All right, so like I just said, inborn predispositions, opposite preferences. And I want you to start thinking about that as we go through the rest of the day. All right, Lauren?
Dan alluded to this earlier. We're talking a lot about preferences. And so the best way to discern what is a preference is by experiencing it. All right, page 8 of your white binder. Yeah, page 8 of your white binder. What I'd like you to do is grab a pen. And in the first rectangle, I want you to just sign your name like you would if you were signing a check, for those of you who remember what checks are. Right. So once you finish with that, it's going to sound like kind of a weird question, but what was that like for you? Familiar, what'd you say? Fantastic, okay. Was it hard or easy? Easy. Did you have to focus? No. Okay. Now, move the pen to your opposite hand and sign in the other rectangle. And I'd like you to tell me, what was that like for you? Very difficult. Okay. Awkward. Very difficult. Give me some other words. Cumbersome. Fun. Okay, that one's different. Okay. So folks, let's tie it together. Let's tie it in with type. Our natural preferences is like doing our signature with our dominant hand. We don't have to think about it. It comes naturally. It's easy. It doesn't require our focus. When we sign with our opposite hand, we can still do it. It's just, it takes a little more focus. It requires more of us. We have to pay more attention. We have to put more energy into it. So we can use both sides of the preferences, i.e., none of us is all one or the other, but sometimes it's just not as natural for us. So keep that experience in mind as we go through the course of the day, because we're going to be saying preferences all day. That's what we mean. Doesn't mean we can't. Now, I'm imagining if you all practiced with your non-dominant hand, you'd get pretty good at it. So it's not that we can't use our other preferences. That's another important point. Okay, folks, we are at the point where we're going to take a 10-minute break.